Apologies. Okay, so let me just do a quick um, intro again. So my name is Olusegun. I'm a developer, and I'll be one of your front end. I'll be one of your front end tutors for this um, batch, or for this at least for the next couple of weeks. So I'll be um, the key focus for today will be um, on how the internet works. You get so, but I would want to take this topic from a web development perspective. You get so, the key focus, the focus will be on what front end developers need to know about the internet, because okay, subsequently you guys would be transitioning into that path, you get, as front end developers. So it's necessary to know how the internet works as pertaining to um, the web development perspective. So this topic will also cover a very, very, very minimal knowledge about servers, but I don't want to go in depth. Um, but just a general understanding of how the internet works would suffice. And so, um, so I'll be able to come up with a very, 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 very simple and straightforward diagram. So apologies if it's not well drawn. So mm, so basically, actually, from the front end point of view, at a very very basic minimal level, really what the internet is just your browser making requests to a server and getting responses back. As simple as it is, basically. So the internet is just really basically your browser making requests to the server and getting responses back. Simple, shaking out. So your browser could be your iPhone or Google Chrome, or basically like a client, um, um, a client app you get. So the graphical UI making a request to a remote server or some sort you get. So um, a browser is just basically like um, it's like a user interface, like a graphical user interface you get, that you can use to view um, web pages you get. So for example, now this is a Google Chrome um, application you get, and I can if I click on any website, it takes me to that website. So if I say, for example, let me just say google.com. So it takes me to google.com's website, and I can also transition between pages and all. So if I want to say, so let's say, you get, so basically just a browser is just a user interface you get for navigating between web pages, basically, and and view web pages and all. So a server on the other hand is just like a machine on the internet. So a server could also be like a remote computer. A server can also be a computer, or you can say it's also a machine on the internet that provides services to a client to get. So a server is just responsible for providing the services that a client makes request for. So um, um, Yeah, so if when a server is connected to the internet, you get um the server gets an IP address. You get so an IP address is a unique address that identifies a device on the internet. You get so every device connected to the internet has is tagged or is mapped to a IP address. So they call it that concept is called domain name system, the DNS. You get so if you're making a request to say google.com, what basically happens is that you send that google.com that google.com goes to some sort of like an ISP. So let's say in this case, let's say SpectraNet. You're using SpectraNet. Your SpectraNet is your ISP. So now SpectraNet now does some sort of like a, a DNS lookup, a domain name lookup, and says, okay, my site.com, what is the corresponding IP address for this my site.com? You get, and once he's able to get that corresponding IP address, it now routes to that server for that IP address. So when you're making a request to say google.com, your ISP first does a DNS lookup to get the corresponding IP address that so it maps. It's like they call it like a mapping system. So just see a DNS like a telephone directory. You get so that has a key value pair. So the key in that case will just be the name of the site you're trying to hit. So in that case, that is google.com, and the value will be the corresponding IP address that maps to that key. You get so what happens behind the scenes is as a user makes that client request to hit google.com, google.com is being um, is being mapped to get it. There's a DNS lookup to get the corresponding IP address, and that IP address is now being routed to the server, and the server now returns a response back to the browser. So in that case, that response could now be the index, the HTML file page, and that's how you'll be able to see a Google page and all. So that's what basically that's just a um that's what happens. You get when you're making a request to a web page and you're getting something in return. So um so like let me reiterate again. So if you a browser, so basically internet is just you the browser making some sort of request to the server, and the server returning the response back to the browser. You get so a browser basically is just the user interface you get for navigating between web pages. You get for viewing web pages and all. And on the other hand, the server is just a device or a machine or a computer, a remote computer on the internet. To get that has has its own functionality just to provide a response or provide a service to the client back. So um ISP, like as you guys, I'm sure you guys are familiar with ISP. ISP is just full name means internet service providers. You get so they are the ones that provide internet connections and services that you're able to that enables you to be able to browse through pages and all. So basically, the internet is just all about making requests and responses. So if I make a request to a server, let's say this server 63.45.24 gigabytes 124, I can get back an HTML file So if I make a request to, let's say, mysite.com, to get, and so this request would route to this server after DNS lookup has been done and all. So like what happens again, we will iterate is that, okay, I'm making a request to mysite.com. Mysite.com server does not know mysite.com. The server only knows the IP address and not just the literal address for this site you are trying to make a request to. So the ISP does helps, or is like a middleman that does the um, DNS lookup, the domain name mapping, that says, okay, so and so is making a request to mysite.com, and this server only understands the IP. So, and I can see that so and so is passing um, is passing mysite.com. How do and server does not understand this. How do I ensure that the server understands what the browser is trying to make a request to? So let me check for. So that is what happens behind the scenes. The ISP now says, okay, let me see the corresponding IP for this mysite.com. So it now does the IP address mapping. Okay, I see, and okay, this the address of um, the IP address of this site is able to get the IP address of this site. So it now routes the request from the browser to the IP address. So behind the scenes, the client is just making an actual request to the IP address to get. So gone are the days, like that's how it was like previously, like in those days, like you literally have to know the IP address that you want to. So nowadays it's a lot easier, like so you can easily type google.com or amazon.com, but previously you have to type the IP address, and they found out that, okay, that was quite tedious because it's not in all cases you'll be able to remember the IP address. Imagine saying that you want to go to google.com now and you have to remember 63.45.24.124. Man, that's a hell of a headache you get. So the domain lookup just came to ease that barrier. So it will just request from the site um, make you're trying to gain access to, but behind the scenes it's just the mapping and um, does the mapping behind the scenes and routes the request to this resulting IP address, and the response is being sent back. If I make a request to this server, um, I can get back anything. I can get back a HTML file. I can get back a CSS style sheet. I can get back an image. I can get back anything to get. So the server can literally return anything back. But how will my browser know what my server is going to return back? So how this browser will know what the server is going to return back is when the server is going to when the server returns back the file, the server is going to send the content type as part of the response. So if I'm making a request to mysite.com, the server will return the file. So I expect that, okay, I'm making a request to mysite.com, I should get back an index page, so the base page of that site. And alongside returning back the base page, the server returns back the content type. So the content type could be now text/HTML, or if he's sending back a CSS file, it's going to be text/CSS. So based on that, if server now knows that, okay, I'm receiving a HTML file, do you get? I now knows how to render it such that the user is now able to see it, the page. So when I make a request to mysite.com, again, the server sends back the index.html file and now sets the content type of text/HTML. Do you get? So um, hence in that regard, so the browser now understands that, okay, oh, I now know I'm now meant to treat that file as an HTML file based on the content type that was being sent. To get so once that is now being sent back, what happens is that um, the browser now begins to pass the file. So um, how do I explain this? Okay, so there's a concept called, I don't want to go into details, but passing is just um, passing basically just means that um, um, God, how do I explain this? Okay, passing basically essentially means translating what is being sent back to the browser into a structure the code can use. You get so I'm making a request to the server for an index file, and when the server is returning back the index file, it sets the content type also back. That way the browser knows that, okay, oh, based on this content type, I'm receiving an HTML file. So if the browser wants to request for a CSS file, when the response is being sent back, the content type that should be set should be of type text/CSS. You get, in that case, then the browser knows, okay, oh, I'm receiving a text/CSS file. So um, okay, so yeah, so now let's look at a simple. So here I make a request to the server to my site.com. He sends the response back, sends the HTML. Browser the server detects that, okay, oh, I'm trying to hit. I'm expecting a HTML file. Returns the HTML file. Then what happens next? Now the browser now decides to now pass the HTML file into some template structure. So I don't want to, and that template structure is like a HTML structure. Get, but I'll just dive into HTML a bit, even though it's something that would go into more detail later on. So the browser engine now passes what is being returned, passes the file that is being sent from the server, and now knows that, okay, well, the file that is being sent is an HTML file based on the content type. Now the browser engine now passes it. You get, so passing is actually um, is a is a more advanced concept actually, but passing just means, okay, the browser engine is going to read the content of that file from top to bottom. You get, so it comes here, reads the doc type HTML, reads the HTML, reads the head. Then when it now reaches the CSS link file, now what happens in this case is that um, the CSS link. So this is just a basic structure of how a HTML page would look like. Okay, I'm sorry, I just need to just maybe touch on this a bit. This is just a simple basic template of how a HTML page is. So you get, so you have um, the head, you have the body, you have the CSS. You get, so once the passing is being executed from top to bottom and now hit um, the style sheet part, the browser, what happens is that um, since it's an asset, so an asset could be a CSS file, a JavaScript, an image, um, a jQuery file, they're basically assets. So he hits this asset, and now checks, okay, this is a main.css asset. This, I don't have this. Then what happens in that case is that the browser will now need to make a request to get this main.css file. So the browser now makes a request back to the server. Okay, I need a main.css file. The server now sends back the main.css file and sets the content to a type sends the content type to a text/css, and that rendering now continues from top to bottom. So um, it's actually important that your CSS file is, or your link reference to your CSS is stored. You notice that, okay, the reference to the CSS is stored in the head. So you have the head, although you can store it in the body, but what happens is that it's the reason why it's stored in the head is because the CSS file needs to be loaded first. So if you are hitting a site, you need to ensure that the CSS is parsed first, to get is properly loaded first before the content displays. So I'm sure you've come across some sites whereby, maybe some cheaply made sites whereby you make a request to that web page, and let's say and you see it flash really ugly real quick, and later it flickers to something beautiful. You get, so in that case, what happens is that the CSS reference is in most cases, when that situation occurs whereby the CSS reference link is put in the body. So in that case, the content is loaded first before the CSS loads. You get, so you actually see the content show like within the twinkle of an eye before you see the CSS now come back and load. So, but ideally, it's a best practice to put the and it's a general standard, actually, like industry standard, to load your CSS in the head tag. You get, so and after the browser now detects that, okay, this file has been loaded, then the browser now passes other content of this file. So it goes and checks, okay, passes the first page, and if there are other more content inside the page, it loads them accordingly. So if there is a JavaScript file, for example, it also does the same thing again. So the browser makes that request, server 63.45 blah blah blah, I need this JavaScript file. That now responds back with the JavaScript file, and that file is now passed and is now being returned back, and the passing rendering continues along the flow. So yeah, so basically, so that's how the internet actually works from a front end perspective. So if I'm to let me repeat myself again, what I've said. So basically, the internet is just a interaction or an interaction between the browser and the server. You get, so the browser says, hey, I need so and so, I need to access my site.com. The server says, okay, I really do not understand my site.com. Can you translate that for me? But that's not the responsibility of the browser. So the ISP is like an intermediary that does that. So the ISP sees that, okay, the server only understands an IP address, and says, okay, let me check my directory for this my site.com, checks for the corresponding IP address, and now routes it to the server, and the server now says, okay, At least the server that understands the IP address and now routes the corresponding files that the client had initially made. So, and that is now being returned as responses back to the browser, and that's what um, the user will now see. So, when you're making a request to say google.com and you just see this page that just shows up like within the twinkling of an eye, that's what happens behind the scenes. So, for example, yeah, okay, for example, now you click google.com. What happens is that google.com is now being mapped to the corresponding IP address, and this index file is now what is now being returned. This is the index page, the main page of google.com is now what is now being returned back to the browser, and that's what the end user will now see. You get? So I don't know if you guys have questions like getting to what um you guys have questions. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can
Yeah,
hear
we
you.
can hear you. It's quite clear. There are no questions for now.
Okay, so it seems that everyone understands um, the analogy I explained and all.
Yeah.
Okay, so okay, there is actually I intentionally did not want to. Actually another part to how this internet works, but I deliberately did not want to. I didn't deliberately did not touch on it because it's more advanced. So another aspect involves um, um, that aspect. I will. So if I happen to be the one that would teach on that teach on a certain topic, a certain front end topic later on along the line, I would bring it up again. I'll bring up the other part. But if I'm not the one, I would ensure that my the person that is taking you would also I'll ensure that he also treats that part. So reason why I didn't want to bring it is because it's I feel it's not necessary for now. Since everyone since this is just a introductory topic, and this would suffice for now. At least having a basic understanding of how um, the browser and the server interact, and how the browser passes the file and all, and how the ISP does the the DNS lookup and all this. I feel um, this should suffice for now. So, in the absence of no questions, what? Yeah. So, in the absence of no questions, um, Grace, what will you say? Like,
Yeah, Olusegun, thank you. Okay, so good evening, guys. My name is Grace Upele. So I'm not sure what to say. I am in the community, but then um I am many things. Or you can reach out to me if you have any issues with the community, and I I okay. So this channel, the channel for the front end cohort is meant to be interactive. We drop lots of posts there, notice, and it's sad that literally just few persons are interacting. So please, we need to work on that because I don't think there will be any learning if there's no interaction. So you guys will need to make friends with yourselves and interact so we can see the interest in this whole learning process and get the best of results at the end of it. And we appreciate you for coming out today. Um, so we're having these classes every Saturdays, 8 p.m. So do well to always be available because there'll be tasks. And then if I think the third week from now, if you don't interact, because we know people that interact, your handle is going to turn green. So if it doesn't, we might need to start removing the people that don't interact on the channel because this is free. I mean, bringing out people here to give out knowledge for free. It's not something you see out there every day in the tech space. So we should show some appreciation and come out and interact and take up tasks and show up for classes. So that's the least we expect from you guys. So I guess the next class to be next Saturday. Somebody else will be taking that. And just respond to any post we drop on the group, please. Very important to respond to posts you drop on the group. Um, when you are learning, you can't be an island of yourself. Speaking from experience, you can't say you are learning and then you want to be on your own, doing things on your own. Trust me, I don't think you ever go far. What's that saying again? That if you can only go far. I'm not sure what that quote is. So just what I'm trying to say is that you should interact with your fellow um, techies because when you interact, you get to know more things and you get to connect. Connection is very important in this whole tech thing. I've had so many good opportunities because I literally connected with people. So connect, interact, start up conversations and all that. And I'm sure that we'll get a positive by the end of the whole program. Everybody would get one or two knowledge and something to be happy for. So that'll be the end for today. That's all I have to say today. Till next Saturday, guys. Thank you so much, Olusegun. That'll be all for me.
Okay. I don't know if Timmy Tokwe will have anything to say.
Well, I think I said everything. And I when you are beginning a course like this, it looks overwhelming, but I think it's going to get interesting when we go more into practical
Yeah.
and going hands-on. So I'm hoping everybody will come out like this every Saturday and really become tech bros and tech sis. Because people used to see the money in tech, but they don't see the sacrifice.
The commitment, yeah.
The sacrifice and the learning behind it. But so I'm rooting for everyone, and I hope to see you at the finish line. Okay, thank you for coming out. We'll drop this recording, so in case you want to go back to the class, and we'll try as much as possible to record all our classes so that you'll be able to return back to it and watch again. So, yeah, bye-bye, everyone.
Oh, please, I have a question.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay. Someone still join.
I'm not too sure. You can reach out to Grace. Grace can decide if someone can join or not.
Just reach out to me. You know my handle, you Pele G.
Oh, okay. Reach out to you via Discord
Discord.
or
Yeah,
okay,
yes.
thank you.
Just do Discord.
Thank you.